Tesla as a company is now valued at over $65 billion. And that makes Elon's personal 27% holding worth a little over $17 billion. This valuation exceeds the combined valuations of both General Motors and Ford. I am not a stock analyst. I don't even play one on TV, and I don't even like the ones that do. In the case of Tesla, they have consistently missed most of the show. There's a whole entire group on Seeking Alpha who are probably diminishing in numbers because they can no longer afford to be on Seeking Alpha because they've been short-selling Tesla for so long. They don't have a house now and are living under a bridge or in their own internal combustion engine car. However, I have shared some of my personal investments with our viewership, and from the email I get, apparently a number of you have taken that to heart sufficiently to buy your own Teslas, usually from the proceeds. In an early EVTV video, I was reminded this week by a viewer that with the stock around $30 per share, I indicated that it was potentially a $350 stock. It now clearly is. We're there. With the addition of the Solar City Blue Sky and Tesla's leadership position in autonomous driving, along with the unrecognized but huge advantage in their proprietary charging network, the only one that works and can be relied on, I'm going to revise that upwards to $950 a share target price in 60 months. And we're probably looking at potentially $1,500 in 10 years. The extant OEM manufacturers have never really bought into the electric car thing, so their introductions, because of the cost of the batteries and the drivetrains and so forth, they pick their lowest cost, most economical car and then try to electrify it. In case of the Leaf, it was their Versa. In the case of the Volt, it was a Chevy Cruze. And the Bolt is even a smaller, more economy car. But it looks and feels and acts like a little economy car. And who wants to pay $40,000 for that when you can get them for $16,000 or $18,000? So that's always been the problem with the value proposition. I'm going to put up EV Insider's chart, kind of listing the various models. The Tesla Model S, of course, is the top of the heap. Of course, Tesla had the handover of the Model 3 with 30 units. I've listened for 8 years, while the existing automotive manufacturers have described for us how Elon Musk and Tesla, their mother, has dressed them funny. And this month marks the launch of a full-blown shrieking, screaming panic among automakers worldwide who feel out of position and their very existence threatened, and they're just, it's comical what some of them are doing. For example, Volvo has strangely announced that starting in 2019 that they're going to be all electric. Then in the fine print we find that, well, maybe not completely, they're going to be all electric vehicles and a plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that do have an internal combustion engine in them, but they'll be hybrids. Then we have the case of Volkswagen, who has generated more electric vehicle press releases than all other manufacturers, including Tesla, combined over the last 8 years. But they have the e-Golf selling 300 units a month to show for it, and actually in production. The head of Volkswagen has announced to the world that we just don't understand. Volkswagen has automotive and electric car capabilities that Tesla just does not and can never have. 2 weeks later, the head of sales at Volkswagen, in an internal newsletter, announced to their employees that Tesla has automotive and electric vehicle capabilities that they do not have. And that they need to get more software engineers and electric car designers on board, or they're going to be obsolete. And so we have the head of Volkswagen and the head of Volkswagen sales announcing almost in the same words exactly opposite positions, and in a total panic. Toyota and Mazda are teaming up, and they have announced a joint venture to build a $1.6 billion manufacturing plant specifically for electric vehicles. It's capitulation across the board, and in most cases, I would say, tinged with a violent edge of true corporate panic. They are in panic, and they have enough cognizance at this point to know about Eastman Kodak and AT&T and the ones who've been disrupted in the past. And it's quite possible they're seeing end of the world looming if they don't get on the EV bandwagon. So Elon Musk has not just influenced them to build electric cars, but with their usual hubris and arrogance, they've delayed until the point of no return the Supercharger Network. This is cool. Let me put up some maps: US, Europe, Asia. And this is completely underrated. The OEMs don't get it. The analysts don't get it. They kind of missed the point. Yeah, 383 of them, 381 in the U.S., 323 in Europe. Asia has 195. The concept appears absurd to GM. Why would we build the gas stations? Other people can do that. Other people have, in the case of EV charging. Let's talk about a dirty little secret here among my brethren who promote electric cars. They have a map, and anyone can register their charge station on the map, and they do. And they put it up, and would you believe that the number of chargers just keeps growing across the land? It just keeps growing because they don't ever take any off the map. And most of these charge stations either no longer are in operation or they're broken. There was an electric car driver pulled up to a series of 6 charge stations at a Costco. None of them worked. He went in and asked the people inside. None of them knew that they had charge stations. Nobody in the store could remember them being installed or anyone ever using one. And they don't use them because they don't work. And so there was a recent story of a woman in a Chevy Bolt who planned a long-distance drive and used this map, but every time she would show up at a charge station, it wouldn't work, and she wound up with a ticket to a ride on a flatbed truck. And this is the dirty little secret about charging networks. Tesla has the only network that matters because it's the only one that works. I've not heard of anybody going to a Tesla charge station and just not working. When they first came out with this, I predicted that it wouldn't be 2 months. Elon Musk said he would gladly welcome participation by other OEMs who would have to help pay for the network, of course. No takers. And I consider it the largest, most horrendous case of corporate fiduciary malfeasance in the history of corporations that they did not. And walk with me, talk with me. Let's be a consumer. Here's a Tesla Model 3. I can drive it from coast to coast. Here's a Chevy Bolt. I can't. Which one am I going to buy? Now understand that Jack, Rickard, and EVTV had the position from the beginning, recognizing that 90% of all American personal mobility trips are within 25 miles of home. And if you would just use an electric car for 90% of your miles, it would be a huge saving, and you can still keep your Cadillac Escalade to drive across country whenever you want. But it doesn't do any good for me to talk sense to people. In their mind, a car is a freedom device that would let them drive to California. When we first returned to Cape in 2000, we went out and had dinner and was met with a delightful waitress named Vanessa. And we ate there for some time, and then Vanessa changed restaurants to a new restaurant and went to work there, and we went and tried that, and we liked it. And again, Vanessa was our waitress. She married the bartender. They finally started their own restaurant, and this has all gone on over a period of 15 or 20 years, and now she runs one of the most successful restaurants in Cape Girardeau. I went in, and to be nice, she asked me about electric cars and how my thing was going, and I told her I was having the time of my life. And she said, well, are those electric cars to the point where I can drive to California yet? I said, you know, some of them are, and some of them aren't. I said, how often do you drive to California in a year? She said, well, not really often. I don't know. I said, well, how many times did you drive to California last year? And she said, well, we didn't go to California last year. I said, Vanessa, have you ever been to California? Well, no, not yet, but I really like California. I'd like to go. Now, I didn't bother to point out that she works 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, making this business go. It'll be some time before she ever sees California or drives to California. But in her mind, electric cars will be a viable option when you can get in it and drive to California. Does she need to drive to California? No. Has she ever driven to California in any kind of car? No. Has she ever been to California? Well, not really yet. The facts do not matter, guys. In her mind, not being able to drive to California in an electric car is a, what would you call it? A strike against the car such that it cannot be considered. It is simply thrown out of the value proposition because it's disqualified from consideration because it can't drive to California. There's no amount of education or acculturation that I or anyone can do to fix that. And Elon Musk brilliantly recognized this early on, and using his super network, you can drive now anywhere in the United States. He's got it all covered. You're within the range of Model S or Model X and apparently Model 3, and can drive anywhere in the continental United States without restriction. And if you're in a Model S or Model X, entirely free of charge. Who can sell an electric car against that doesn't have that ability? It is such an overwhelming competitive advantage. It is ludicrous for Chevrolet to have ever introduced the Bolt. It was dead, not on arrival, but on inception, because they do not understand the customers who buy electric cars. At this point, understand that all the EV crackpot nutcakes like Jack Rickard already have an electric car. The low-hanging fruit is gone. All advances in the sale of electric cars in the future will be into a group of people that don't really care about electric cars that much. You have to make the value proposition. And one of the key questions is no longer how long does it take to charge or how far can it go. The question is, can I drive it to California? If you can, you're a prospect. And if you can't, you're off the board, man. They don't care what else is in the car. You've been disqualified on one of the very basic questions. And Tesla has this managed and maintained supercharger network that's not only tied in with your map on your car, but when you get there, it will actually work. And they have people who monitor these things and dispatch repair teams to them and maintain them. And that is a competitive advantage that is, it's absolute. They win on every single comparison based on the supercharger network, and all the analysts view it as a cost and a detraction. And the more me has, the bigger the lead becomes, the more impossible it gets to overcome the Tesla advantage of the installed base. It's going to be the single aspect of the electric car value proposition that is unassailable. It's a huge competitive advantage. Again, this isn't first mover. This is an 800-pound gorilla. This is total market dominance. The one, of course, nearest and closest to my heart is batteries. Tesla is all over batteries. He was really viewed as a crank and really a crazy person when he announced a $5 billion investment in a battery factory. Understand that that one factory built by Tesla right now doubles the world's production of lithium batteries. Half of the lithium batteries produced in the world will be produced in that factory. And that kind of puts Tesla in the catbird seat going forward. I read analysts all the time that don't apparently understand factories, and they certainly don't understand lithium batteries. The Tesla Gigafactory is not wed to any particular battery chemistry. Tesla monitors all battery chemistries, and let me assure you of one thing. Tesla is the largest single customer for lithium batteries in the world. Nobody breathes a breath about battery development without running and showing it to Tesla first. Nobody makes a move worldwide in battery research without seeing if Tesla might be interested in it first, because they're the largest consumer of lithium batteries in the world. If there is a new chemistry, they can adopt it and they can have it in production faster than anyone on the planet, and that's batteries. Tesla has their new 2170 cell. What have I learned about that recently? They are talking really about 6 amp hours per cell in this thing. You were at 3,400 milliamp hours per at the very top for the 18650s, and apparently 5750 milliamp hours to 6,000 on the 2170, which is 15% larger and double the capacity. And so the 2170 is going to be quite a battery. The next aspect I would like to discuss regarding Tesla and its valuation and why it's absurd to consider it a car company has to do with solar power. Actually, he's got a great concept, and that's ceramic roof tiles that are themselves solar power producing. And of course, he has the battery factory with the Gigafactory and can produce a battery. The power wall is the second generation of that at 13.4 kilowatt hours for $5,500. Is a trivial demonstration of things to come. And as we noted last episode, he has a contract in hand to install a 127 megawatt hour massive battery installation in St. James, South Australia. He, again, is beyond first mover to 800-pound gorilla. In fact, owns the space about batteries for solar applications, and is working on a new type of rooftop concept, which is a solar tile that will outlast the life of the structure as far as durability and power production, and will be visually appealing as well, and so hopes to disrupt two industries in one fell swoop, and if successful, would probably totally disrupt both of them, and that is roofing materials and solar panels. And if you can make that roof so durable that it outlasts the basic 15 to 20 year lifetime of our current roofs, you can wipe out the roofing industry. And if you can make that roof make sufficient power, you can also completely strand all investment in solar panels almost worldwide. Tesla, with their first mover in doing large-scale battery packs for Southern Edison in California and Hawaii, the island of Tau, and now Australia, along with introducing a home device, the Powerwall, for residences. They're out a light year ahead of everybody else and basically own the space. It's not first mover advantage, it's only mover advantage. And so I believe that the blue sky in solar is just immense. You're talking about 1 billion buildings worldwide, all of which are a suitable candidate for both batteries and solar plant. And with Tesla as being the default go-to on those items, there's no limit to their growth just in solar. Autonomous driving could be huge. It could make cars great again. And I was kind of had an eye-opener, as I said in the last episode, in a document at Intel, noting a $7.5 trillion disruption to the U.S. economy in the event of autonomous driving. A couple of factoids lie underneath all this, and one of them is that the use of the average American car runs right about 4%. And that means 96% of its time it's parked at the parking lot at work, or in your garage, or in front of your house, or at the grocery store, and it is actually operating at 4% of the time. And so it's a curiously inefficient deployment of a huge capital investment to mostly sit. If we could make it autonomous, we could dispatch it. You could have it drive you to work and send it off back to the house to get your wife and drive her to work, for example. But you could also rent it out during the day. But there's any number of ways to keep the car operating and improve that 4%. Tesla and Elon Musk, I think, are, as they are with the electric car generally, way out in front in the first mover position against the entire automotive industry. I think that holds true in autonomous driving. And Google and Apple and Chevrolet and everybody who want to play are going to be playing catch up. Tesla is not a car company. You can't compare their capitalization to such historic dinosaurs as General Motors and Ford. They're a technology company, and they could be worth $65 billion based on autonomous driving alone if they didn't even make the cars. If they just did the autonomous driving part. Apple computer stock sells right now at 50 times its price in 2004, split adjusted, of course. I take Tesla at $30 to start 5 years ago, and if they are an Apple, that would put them in 10 years at about $1,500 a share. I have noted several times that Elon Musk has never met a date or a price set. But understand what I'm really saying. I'll take his misses over the celebrated wins of any other executive in American business. If you don't shoot for something big, you're going to have to settle for what you get. If you shoot for a human settlement on Mars, for example, and miss, you may just have to accept the bitter consolation prize of, say, a 4,000 satellite communication network that owns all the internet and so all human communications on the planet Earth as a consolation prize. Oh well. And so there you go. Big rant on Tesla and Tesla valuations and where we're at with electric cars, but that's the way I see it. We don't report a whole lot on other electric cars because mostly at this point they almost don't matter.